Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Upside Swings and Media Draft Podcast, the podcast with the highest ceiling. I'm your host, Bryce. Joined with a great Cooper Klein, even though right now he is a black screen, a void of nothingness. He is the abyss that we must stare into and try to avoid blinking. But when he gets back, he will have a fun editing joke in there. But this is we're not going to go through the full intro. I'm not going to ask Coop how he's doing today because we already talked about it. Because this is the second pod we're recording in one day, we decided executive decision to do two pods because I think these two guys are worth talking about on their own. Just being frank, I think these are two really, really interesting kind of big time prospects to break down and talk about. And if you're listening on YouTube, we are going to start with one, Aday Mara or Aday Mara. I feel like it's probably Aday, and I apologize if I'm messing that up, but a champion, starting center on the best team in college basketball, maybe the best team in college basketball of the last couple of years. There's at least an argument. Aday had a tumultuous journey where he was cast aside by one Mick Cronin at UCLA. Barely played over his first 2 years, despite being this, elite Spanish prospect, that we had been on our radar well before getting to UCLA. But he has this huge junior season. He has also a huge combine where he measures 7'3" with a 7'6" wingspan and a 9'9" standing reach. Now, he did not lie on his standing reach because that vertical was about to be bad anyways. But he does have a huge standing reach tied with, I think, Mark Williams for highest standing reach ever. So shout out to those long arms. This year at Michigan, played in 40 games, started 39 of them, but did only play 23.5 minutes. And that is something that I'm very intrigued to talk about that I think has gone super under discussed with Mara. Averaged 12.1 points on pretty great efficiency, 66.8, 30, but barely took any threes. 56.4 shooting splits, 6.8 total rebounds, 2.4 assists, 2.6 blocks, 0.3 steals, 2 turnovers. For a couple of the more advanced stats, had an awesome 12.7 BPM, 119.5 offensive rating, also really good. 23.8 usage is not crazy, but solid. 67.3 effective field goal, 65.8 true shooting. Both those numbers are good. Obviously, it's never a great sign when your true shooting goes down from your effective field goal rate. That means you really can't make your free throws. But worth noting there. Offensive rebound rate of 10.4, defensive rebound rate of 20.4, both pretty good. 19 assist rate to a 19.8 turnover rate, 1.2 assist turnover. I do think that's something that I'm interested to return to because so many people talk about the cell as him being like this playmaking big, and I there's definitely some concerns for me there. 12 block rate is really good. 0.8 steal rate is not good, but he's also 7'3". Like, let's not be nitpicky. 46.5 free throw rate is solid. Dunked 81 times. Shot 81.1% on 196 close twos. That's really good. 41.1 on 95 long twos. Not great, but not horrendous for a big guy. The horrendous number is 56.4 on 140 free throws. And then he did shoot 3 of 10 from 3, but again, 10 threes. Coop, as you look at this stat profile, one of the more interesting, I would say, in recent memory, really, really fascinating stat profile. What stands out to you?
This is a guy who is 7'3" and just good at basketball, right? 12 block rate. He's playing with 2 other centers. I think he's got the requisite level of defensive dominance that you want to see from a guy this good. Pretty good on the boards. Again, you play with 2 other centers, you might be the biggest one, but you're still killing on the boards. That 20% defensive rebound rate, 10 on the offensive rebounds, on the offensive boards, and some funk as a passer. He's just kind of good at a lot of things, and he's spectacular at the things that you want, that you need a guy this big to be good at. The reason you are tall is so you can rebound and block shots and finish on the inside, and he's spectacular at all of those things. So he's up to snuff in the way he needs to be.
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out most to me is he did a lot of things. for a 7'3" guy. Other than steals, it's a pretty varied stat profile with lots of stuff on it. Where do I want to start? Coop, I'm just gonna, I'm putting the impetus on you today. Where do you want to start with Mara? Because I think he is maybe the hardest to like nail down in terms of like a sell, I guess. So what do you think if you were to like? So I'll put it this way: there are some people who believe strongly that Mara will go like at 5, that he's the next guy for the top 4, or that he should at least. I've heard strong tail that the odds that he drops past 8 or 9 are very low. This is a guy who is all of a sudden rocketing upwards. What do you feel like the sell for that is? What's the positive swing to say this is the guy that we're taking top 10?
If I was a Mara top 5 believer, the way I would sell that to myself is he was the best player on the best team, maybe in the history of college basketball. And that's not something I believe personally, but if you look at it as there's a 7'3" behemoth who was playmaking, defending, scoring on the inside, and dominating for the team that steamrolled the second best team in the country and then killed the best coach of the 2020s. Oh, hey, maybe that guy's going to be a good NBA player. I think for me, as someone, I like Mara. I am not in love with him in the way that some people are. The way that I think of him is he's probably the best non-Wemby defender at this size that we've seen, unless I'm forgetting somebody. He is actively mobile in a way 7'3" humans are not. He's able to flip his hips a little bit. He slides well with guys. And he's so big that he's like kind of overwhelming in a way that an Edey isn't, right? Where Edey is like truly dominant on the interior. Mara, but like he can't move in a lot of ways. Mara can. Mara's like mobile. He can slide his feet. He can do some stuff defensively. And his hands are just so good. He is one of the better like hand-eye shot blockers I've seen in a while. He's one of the few people who like if he goes up to block a shot and you like are a crafty finisher, he'll go up with both hands and he can reach both sides of the net and cover them for if you're gonna go up, with a reverse. He's there. He's just like he's got some special as a rim protector, and he's not like you can't just drag him out and kill him on the perimeter in a way you can with these massive, massive guys. And I think that alone is enough to like kind of put him into lottery stuff, maybe like back end. If you're really into that, but there is some like limited ceiling stuff in other areas that we'll talk about.
Yeah. I think the defense is definitely the sell. He's not my favorite defender in this class. We're going to talk about someone in a few minutes who I think is the guy who I think could be like a defensive player of the year. But there's definitely that world for Mara, right? Like I really did not like his like attention to detail and his like overall effort level. And there were moments where it flashed like the effort level, but it was not consistent. I thought his conditioning was off. Like when he got tired, he got so tired that he couldn't like affect plays anymore. It could get really bad, but he's also special. Like there are times you're watching and you're just like, that's special. There are times where he's hedging and recovering and where he is making multiple efforts on a single possession. And I'm just like, that's special. There are single-digit number of human beings on the planet his size or taller who do what he does. It's one guy. It's one guy. He is the only other guy this big who moves like that. Now, he does not have the hand-eye coordination of someone like a Wemby. He does not have the technical drop feel as someone like a Chet, and he is not as like vertically impactful and explosive as someone like a Mobley. He's not as mobile as Mobley. Like he is a worse rim protecting prospect than those three, in my opinion. Wemby's obviously tier of his own, best rim protection, defensive, whatever prospect of all time, not even close. That next tier for me is like that Chet, Mobley. I'm sure like Rudy Gobert maybe was in that tier back in the day. Aday Mara feels like a step below that. Like just that like he's not technically great. I'm not sure he can sustain it for long periods. And like he's pretty weak. Like I do worry about stronger wings being able to kind of go through his chest some on their drives. Like I'm not really worried about him on quick guards because his hips do flip fast enough that I think he'll be able to contest from behind. But stronger driving wings and forwards who can beat him with quickness and then keep him out of a play with their strength, that worries me like on switches. But if we're talking about switching the 7-3 guy on the perimeter, like if we're getting to the point where that's even an option, then we've already won, right? Like that means already like he's already good enough to do enough other things that like if he has to switch onto the perimeter at any point, then it's like that's just the gravy on top. It's really like again, I don't think he's special because none of the individual skills are special other than his size plus like weird fluidity and just like a natural sense of feel as a basketball player. But those three things are all close enough to special that they're just like combined that's special. Um it's like up there. And again, I he's not my favorite defensive prospect in this class, but he is up there with maybe the most intriguing defensive prospects of the last handful of years outside of Wemby. Like I'm really I struggle because when I was watching, I would get so frustrated with the dumb mistakes he would make and his weird like kind of lose his head um like all that kind of stuff like worries me and weirds me out. I'm just not sure, but he's just a naturally smart basketball player who combines like not only smart but with like a level of feel too, who's also just huge and fluid and like it's potentially special. It's potentially all defense, maybe even win a defense player of the year type of thing. And I think that's all great. I think the offense is a really huge concern, despite what some other people might say. I actually think our cell is the opposite of like what I've seen some people talk about, where it's like I don't think the passing and playmaking stuff really is a sell much at all. Like we'll talk about it. There's some funk there, but I think the sell is almost entirely defense, and then you're just hoping that he's an efficient enough finisher offensively to make that the role. So, do you have anything else you want to say on the defense, Coop? And if not, will you transition us some to what he is offensively?
Yeah, I do think that like the defense is the kind of thing that is really like hyper valuable in college, and then like in the NBA is arguably even more like because he can move so well. I think there's like he doesn't have the technical stuff, and he's so out of shape that like I think he's for the same age, I think he's like in worse shape than a Klingon. And Klingon, it's like at least he has all that muscle, so you kind of get why he's a little more fatigued running around the court than someone like Mara. But Mara does move far, far better than a Klingon, and Klingon in limited minutes has been good. I think Mara in limited minutes could be great defensively with a little bit of help. And still needs to grow into his body some on that end. He's not Wemby, where he's been trained with the tallest people in the world to understand his body since he was 12 or whatever. But offensively, I think he's just super long, and he's kind of just got that motherfucker in him. Like I think he can get inside, he can pick and roll, he can score pretty well on the interior. I think he's got decent touch. Um, I don't buy the shot. I don't think he's gonna like shoot it at all, which kind of limits his potential in that way. And then I think the passing is like kind of bullshit, like scheme bullshit a lot. He's like, there's always been like the passing hub stuff, but just because you're big doesn't mean, and you can pass a little bit, doesn't mean that you're going to be a passing hub, right? I don't think Mara can like do the thing where he actually posts up and draws help and then makes a read. Everything is schemed, and he either has to be like in passing mode or in scoring mode. The true like hubs are like I don't know. I think true passing hubs are so rare in the NBA that like the guys who can actually, but the guys who can actually do it are like almost underrated in a way. You know, like the Derek Queens who fall to 14 for some reason. But like Mara's not there. I think he could be in that Hartenstein kind of like sit at the top of the key and make a cool backdoor pass every once in a while that's completely schemed for him, but he's not going to be an advantage creator at all. He's like a useful piece of an offense. He is not an offense unto himself, and I think that's a very key distinction for these post hub bets. Especially if he's not going to shoot, especially if you can sag off of him, and especially if he's not strong enough to punish you for sagging off of him. And those three things are all true.
Yeah, I think the passing really, like, it's all flash. Like, it's very Şengün. Like Şengün was the same way where like he had all these like flashy passes, and then I was like, but I actually don't like a lot of the decisions he makes. A lot of it's schemed. You know, he can like, again, it's kind of the same defense. Like there is some of that natural feel stuff there in the same way where it's like he's a hooper. He's like if a hooper was 7'3", like this should be a guy that like ball don't stop like loves, because he just like you just watch him and you're like, man, he's just kind of got it sometimes. Like he does some shit that like not a lot of people have the confidence to do. And he did it after basically riding the bench for 2 years at UCLA. Like there's a little bit of like, yeah, that's kind of like that's kind of baller, right? Like a couple of passes he makes to Perez Johnson. I like that his mind is always interior pat, like he wants to create open looks at the rim. But he's also just like when he can't dribble at all. Like there is no, again, get the Wemby comps out of your mind. That's not who he is. His passing is a little bit closer to like Klingon's to me than I would like. Now I think he's a better passer than Klingon was, but remember how like some people would be like, oh, but Klingon like good decision maker. It's like, yeah, because they're like running the nastiest shit of all time. He just gets to stand there holding the ball. Like Mara is a little bit like that, but better. The real thing I don't like about Mara is that he's really soft. He's really weak, and he does not play tough, even though he's a good offensive rebounder. Like it's all like reach and hand, and he does have good hands. Like he can really catch. There was a couple times where it's like they would throw some wild like full court passes to him, and he's like catching him and like tiptoeing out of bounds lines like he's fucking Calvin Johnson. Like there's some stuff where I'm like, this is wild. Like but he's also then he like bails out of every screen. Or if he does set a real screen, he's like setting it with his hand. He's like pushing someone on their shoulder. And it's like, I hate that shit, man. Like he needs to get in the gym with Steinbach and let Steinbach like show him how to set a real man screen. You know, it's like I hate that stuff. Like he doesn't really fight for position very well on the inside. He has an okay jump hook. He was not crazy efficient on it. I don't think he's like really that type of advantage creator. I think he's much more of like a dunker spot finisher who can run action. Like he can be your DHO operator in the sense of like running a zoom action at the top and making the right decision. But he's not going to be your DHO operator in terms of like, this is a guy that can turn it down and get downhill. Like he might every once in a while, like do something where you're like, oh, that's, you know, in the regular season, do something where like, oh, wow, look at this 7'3" guy, like, you know, do a little push cross and dunk from the dotted line or whatever. That'd be great. That stuff is great. But like, is that like a consistent thing for him? No, I think he's much more of like a dunker spot, occasional screen and roll. But you probably can short roll him, and he can probably make an okay decision. You know, I think the real thing for him is like, could he be really good in delay stuff and transition, or could he be like a really effective hit ahead guy? Like, I don't think there's like a star pathway for him offensively, but I do think that for who he is, who he could be defensively, there's potential plus offensive upside. Just in that, like, again, like he can't, you know, you could throw it to him in the post against a like size guy and he can get to a 48% jump hook, or you could run some split cut action and if something's wide open, he's going to make the right decision out of it. Like, just like simple, easy big man stuff offensively, I think he can do, and he might do it with a little bit of panache. Now he's going to make you pull your hair out and do some really dumbass stuff sometimes, like this whole team, like Yaxel Lendeborg is like the most like robot of like a do the right thing, spam the correct decision every time player. And then Mara is like the exact opposite sometimes where he's like, I'm bored. Like, yeah, I've made the same pass for a wide open three 2 times in a row, but like, why would I do that again when I can throw it through three people trying to find Merez Johnson on a cut? Like, just like, I mean, he's in a way that I think while can frustrate me, especially like in my coaching brain where I'm like, make the right fucking play. I also think is like it scales in the NBA. Like there tends to be like I just think there's a level of can you play? Like can you just kind of fit in and play and do a couple of different things? And I think Mara can. Like, is the skill really there? No. But he dunked a lot. Like, and it's not like their spacing was great. Like, he was a really efficient, close to finisher despite being really weak. Like, I think that stuff translates. Is he a hub? Is he a star on offense? No. But if he's like a top 5 rim protector in the league who can also do some switching, and he's like a good finisher on offense, and he makes play, like I'm talking myself up. Like he should probably be a top 5 guy. Like maybe he really should. Like, am I crazy, Coop? Like I really don't like to be the guy to ride the wave. Now I get to all this stuff late, but like Aday Mara like was not talked about this high for a long time. And the one thing that does really concern me is the conditioning. Like he's only playing 24 minutes per game. He looked exhausted for 12 of those 24 minutes. Like he's super impactful at the start of the game and the start of the half a lot, or after his first rest. Like, Michigan was fairly consistent with their rest patterns. He would kind of come back in around like 7 or 8 minutes, depending on what it was like. And he would sometimes be really impactful there. But by the end of his spurts, he's getting really gassed. Like, I don't know, like talk me off the ledge a little bit, Coop. Am I too high on Mara?
I mean, he's just kind of a pussy, and that's like he's got some motherfucker in him where it's like when it's rolling, it's rolling. But like if you have a strong guy who could put his chest into him, it's like, oh yeah, actually now I'm gonna do nothing. And the NBA is chock full of strong guys who will read the scouting report and then shove their chest into Aday Mara, and I think he'll lose a lot of offensive viability. I do just think that like guys who can do stuff, and like even if if you're a plus player for 12 minutes in a game, you are adding more value than a guy who adds like very little value for 25 to 30 minutes a game, right? Guys who actually truly add plus value in the NBA are rare. There are not guys who can truly impact a basketball game at the level Aday Mara can, even in only 12 minutes a game. And if you can get the conditioning up and keep him healthy and all these different things, and you can get him to like 20 minutes and you can play him in your most impactful 20 minutes in the game, whoa. But like, I do think that is a limiting factor onto his true ceiling, that he's not like, Wemby conditioned, where Wemby can go in and give you 30 plus minutes casually and not have that. Like, I think watching Mara really makes you appreciate just how great Wemby is. And, I think we did like a 90-minute plus podcast on him in his year. I need to go back and listen to that. But like, if Mara can give you, the special on defense for 12 minutes, that's super, super valuable. And there's enough on offense to still provide value. And even when he's like gassed, he's still doing shit for you. I think he's just good. I do think that the being good at basketball and truly adding value in that way is so important to good teams. I think he'll find his way onto good rosters and give them good minutes. And that's really, really important.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm really struggling with where I want to put him. Maybe a couple other things I should know. You know who he kind of reminds me of, for good and for bad, is Zach Edey. In that, like, for someone this big, like he has just like real athletic pop. Like he's not like a Taco Fall or whatever, where it's like, okay, well, he can dunk when he's right under the rim. Like there are quite a few Mara dunks where he's like well outside the lane. He has this really, it's a Caleb Wilson move too, but like that baseline spin that he gets to, like when he dunks off of that, it's pretty impressive. Like his hips flip really quick for such a big guy. He doesn't like sit in a stance and push step laterally, but his ground, like, here's a crazy one, Coop. Is he a better straight line athlete than Coop? I think he covers ground better than
I
Coop
think he
does.
does, and then he's also like massive. You know,
Yeah.
there's like some
And he
moments
like
where
he
he's
plays
like
with his
getting the
hands
hand
out and
on.
hands high. Like he's,
Yeah.
can he actually switch? Probably not. But I bet you can play a coverage pretty well. Like he can be a drop guy or he can be an at the level guy. He can probably switch in some really specific scenarios. You know, again, can he be a hub? No, like the touch to me is maybe the biggest concern. Like the free throw shooting plus the like just not really having an ability to get to, again, like I'll bring up Hartenstein again because he's kind of the go-to for these European big guys who have had success. Like, is he going to get the Hartenstein floater? Probably not. Like, I just don't think he doesn't really have the biomechanics or the touch for that. He needs to be just like a hard roll, dunker spot kind of guy. But the moments and the flashes where we'll be able to do other things, I think will make him more playable in more scenarios. I think maybe the most interesting thing with Mara is that I think he's pretty scheme versatile. Like, I think he can probably be an effective guy on multiple teams, and that is pretty reasonable to me as a really high end bet. Let's start to talk about value. I think the thing I'm really struggling with is, do I want him in the tier with my lower level, not lower level, but like not quite like my top five guys, my lottery guys? Do I want him with Yaks and with Michael Brown, or do I want him in the Keaton Wagler, AJ Devonsa tier? That's what I'm really struggling with. And so I'm gonna pass the buck to you. I should have said this, but he is a little bit older too. He's an April 7th, 2005 birthday, which means he's 21 now, and his rookie season will be his age 21 season. So he's a little bit older, not like old, but a little bit, on the higher end of the age curve. Where are you at with Mara? Where do you have him? What's your value on him? How are you feeling about Mara right now?
I'm struggling with the tier thing. I know his spot on my board. I found the little nook he can slot into because I know I like him more than Mikel Brown and less than Yaxel. But do I like him in that same like the true like flawed true star bet tier? Do I see him as a true star bet because of the size and because of the like that defense is special, with a little bit of fixing. But I think there's too many flaws there for me to have him in that tier. I think having him as just a lottery guy and not a true star bet because I do think the the conditioning is just so worrying. As a 21-year-old, I get it, you're 7'3", but um, we gotta find some. We gotta figure that out. Especially NBA minutes are so much tougher than college minutes. The game is longer, the game is more athletic, the game is wider physically because of the 3-point line and because of just how good of shooters and players NBA players are. The game is so much harder. And I think that's going to be really tough on him. If he plays like 8 minutes a game as a rookie, I would not be surprised. They could be great 8 minutes, but I really think he's going to struggle with that transition. And then he's not Edie, where it's just like, sure, he's got a little bit of like motherfucker. He's got some like fun stuff to him where it's like he just knows how to play and he'll kind of figure it out. But it's also like Edie, you can like, he'll go out there and he's tough. Like Edie is pretty tough. I think that was something I kind of slept on with him as an evaluator. It's just like he's massive and he's tough. And as a scorer, sometimes you just kind of need that. Um, I do think Mara is just really missing that, and that does impact your like highest end outcomes. Because as much as it's like compared to other role players, giving me 12 minutes of elite basketball is better than 20 to 25 of mediocre basketball. But for stars, NBA stars give me 30 to 35 minutes of elite basketball, or at least good basketball, like true stars. And I don't think Mara will ever reach that point, even if his impact is like higher than some of these like low level all stars. Like, sorry, I hate to pick on your guy, but like a Paolo Banchero, right? Where it's like, sure, he can play a lot and he can take shots for you, but Aday Mara just destroys games for 18 minutes. And that's just more valuable. So,
Yeah, the thing I'm fighting with is that as we've talked about it, the more I've been like, is there a chance he's like a defensive player of the year caliber guy? And I think I have to default to my kind of how I actually felt watching, which was no. I just think he makes too many mistakes. And he's not quite like again, Wemby makes and made and still makes, even as a defensive player of the year, a lot of mistakes, but has this crazy hand-eye coordination and like even more natural feet and more natural reaction time. And was just, I mean, bigger than Mara even. Like I do think like I'm getting a little bit caught up in the chasing Wemby thing and not realizing that like as I was watching, I didn't actually think Mara was like all that good defensively. And I actually kind of thought Perez Johnson was better. And like when I was watching in the moment, and again, I haven't done my deep dive on Johnson. I was like, I think Perez Johnson is just a better player and better prospect. And there's a part of me that doesn't want to like completely oversell that just because as I'm talking about him, it's easy to get so excited about Mara. So I think I need to temper myself down and recognize that there's a lot of good things, but I also like I was never like, man, this guy is obviously really good at any one thing as a basketball player, other than I think he's great at catching the ball. Like his ability to catch the ball as a giant human is elite, and like that should make him a crazy good lob threat. But his ability to be in pick and roll might be limited by the fact that he can't screen, and so there's all these things. Like I don't think he quite has like the toughness and the dog of someone like like a Wemby or a Chet either. Like I just think he's probably a tier below those guys. And again, I was low on Klingon. I think he's a little bit better prospect than Klingon because I think he's more athletic and he's a little bit bigger, but I don't think he's like a crazy better prospect than Klingon. And Klingon's more like a top 15 to 20 big probably than a top 3 to 10 big or whatever. Like so I think is there a world Ade Mara is an all defense player? Yeah, there's definitely a chance, but I think I need to temper it. He's going to be below Yaks for me, but probably right below him, depending on how our conversation about this next guy goes. But above Michael Brown Jr. and LeBaron Philon, Kingston Flemings, and above Caleb Wilson, which I'm sure will shock many. Coop, do you have any final thoughts on Aday before we move on?
I did just want to say if the defense comes around, Rudy Gobert is getting paid how much money, and he's just so good defensively that offensively it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he cannot dribble and cannot do anything, right? And I don't think Mara will ever reach Gobert heights. Gobert is like uniquely athletic and lanky in a lot of ways, but there is a world where you get you know 24 minutes of like a slightly worse defensively and better offensively Gobert.
If we were to rank players in this draft by percentage chance that they end up getting a max rookie extension after the first 4 years of their contract, he would probably be fourth for me behind the top three. I think it's more likely that he gets one than Caleb Wilson for sure. And then even though I have Wagler a whole tier ahead of him, I think in terms of percentage outcomes, like we talked about with Wagler, like his secondary outcomes are more like $20 million players or even maybe a little bit less. Aday, if he's really the level of defender, even in limited minutes, because he's 7'3", if he's 7'3" and can just actually play and be efficient and effective, like he's probably a borderline max guy. Like that's, so yeah. So I do think that's kind of an interesting point. But he is, I bet you, there's a real chance that and there's a chance that we look back on this and we're too low. And it would be because he's a special defender. I just think I need to stay true to some of my core beliefs. And that's just like, I didn't think he was that good or technically sound or locked in or anything like that defensively. And so projecting defensive player of the year onto someone like that is a concern for me. People, we heard all types of things about Evan Mobley, but like I never questioned Evan Mobley's like understanding and recognition. I never felt like he was at the center of mistakes in the same way. And then Chet, was like the most technically sound drop defender I've ever seen. So like, I don't think Mara is that level, but very, very good. All right, let's talk about. Actually, I need to do another intro. Coop, I'm giving you a little bit of a breather here. Should I do some vocal warm ups? All right.